Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation, right here, Jeff Waldorf with you on this Thursday. Feels like a Tuesday, but it's a Thursday. It's been a weird week. But we are back for the day. And we have some great stories for you guys today. Let me move that aside a little bit. So we're going to talk about, of course, private prisons. It's a big, big story. We're going to talk about how those private prisons have flourished under the current administration and some of the conditions inside. It's a huge report from the Daily Beast. So, look, I don't agree with the Daily Beast when it comes to Democratic primaries, but there is some good journalism coming from there, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you guys. We also have Donald Trump, the latest updates on the shutdown. We'll talk about that. We also have GM workers lashing out at the company. That's fun. We'll talk about that. Then a black man gets arrested. Doesn't get arrested, but has the cops called on him for talking to his mother. That is a crazy story. And then we'll also, hopefully, if we can get to it, because that prison story is a long story, we're also going to try to hit that budget. The ridiculous budget from CNBC. Again, not quite getting it. So, great stories on the lineup today. We're going to have a great show. We got some interesting stuff to talk about. Before I get to that, of course, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. That helps us out greatly. So if you're on Facebook, please share it. If you're on YouTube, also share it. Twitter, tweet it out. All that stuff. That helps out greatly. Also, 2,300 subscribers until we hit 100,000. That's amazing. So if we can hit that, I don't know if we're going to hit that by the end of the year. But at least, I mean, that was my goal. Hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2018. But I don't know. It's up to you guys if we get to that. So we'll see. I'll cross my fingers. And of course, we're always looking for patrons to support the show. Patreon.com/TYTNation. I think I need to plug Micro Binge. I'm on Micro Binge. That, of course, is a Facebook, or I should say it's a social media way to get away from Facebook while still retaining a lot of the user functionality of Facebook without the whole spying thing. So it's a good little social media. Sign up with that, Micro Binge. They're, of course, a sponsor of the show. So, all right. That said, let's dive into the stories here. Let's start out with the Trump shutdown. All right. Now, President Trump on Tuesday claimed that many of the workers who are not being paid because of they're either working without pay or they've been furloughed are doing so because, well, they want to support Trump in his bid to get funding for the wall. In fact, we have this video from the other day. I believe it was from yesterday. At least we played this on the show yesterday, where he said that he had a lot of support from these furloughed workers. Let's take a look.
Well, I think they understand what's happening. They want border security. The people of this country want border security. Many of those workers have said to me and communicated, stay out until you get the funding for the wall. These federal workers want the wall.
These federal workers, they want the wall. And so they're okay with going without paychecks because, well, they want border security. I mean, we can't have a country without borders. If you don't have borders, you don't have a country, right? However, that was yesterday. Everything can change in one day or 1 hour or one tweet in Trump world. And now he's saying this in an early morning tweet. He blamed the Democrats, as usual, and said, Have the Democrats finally realized that we desperately need border security and a wall on the southern border? Need to stop drugs, human trafficking, gang members, and criminals from coming into our country? Do the Dems realize that most of the people not getting paid are Democrats? Wait, I just showed you the video where he's like, most of the people not getting paid support the wall. Well, then they would not be Democrats, because there are very, very few Democrats that support Trump's wall on the southern border. Ridiculous, right? Come on, man. Now, here's the thing. He's obviously he lied. And now he's saying, yeah, I lied. Of course I lied. Government workers don't like the shutdown. And, you know, because they're not getting paid, for one, and it's about this stupid wall. So, you know what, Chuck and Nancy, just give me what I want so I can put these people back to work so they can get paid. Well, okay. Yes, he lied. But he lies daily. Now, the question is, will Democrats stand firm? So far, they have. I'm actually really, really surprised that Chuck and Nancy haven't folded. I mean, look, if you'd asked me when this started, I was very, very worried that they're like, oh, they're going to see the stock market, and then they're going to say, oh, okay, Mr. Trump, we're going to give you $5 billion for your wall. That actually hasn't happened, and so I'm very, very surprised, right? And look, here's the thing about that. We would have actually had a deal set up where they would have had $1.6 billion allocated towards border security. Now, I don't agree with that. I don't think we need more border security. I think we got enough. But it wouldn't have gone to the wall, to be fair. And you look, you had Republicans that supported it. You had the Democrats that supported it. And you even had Donald Trump that supported it. That is until Rush Limbaugh and Ann Coulter started going sour on him and pushed him into doing this government shutdown. I mean, the government is on a literal partial shutdown so that Trump can impress Ann Coulter. I mean, give me a break. Ann Coulter is and should be completely irrelevant. But her and the 12 other people that seem to agree with her on the wall in some of her really racist positions, well, they're willing to hurt over 700,000 Americans to build a wall that almost nobody wants and that won't actually solve any problems. And look, here's the thing. The $5 billion that he's asking for won't even fund a majority of the wall. It would fund, well, a very, very small section of the wall, because the entire wall is estimated to cost anywhere from $20 to $70 billion. And guess what? If the Democrats do cave, and I think they understand this, right? If they do cave, well, first of all, it'd be an absolute disaster. But then Trump will be like, well, why don't I just do this again the next time and get even more funding for my wall? It's a perfect plan. So the Democrats gave, well, that's it. But here's the thing. You know what? I actually have an idea here. How about we give the Republicans a real shutdown? This is a partial government shutdown. Social Security checks are still going out. You know, a lot of government services are still running. A lot of programs are still running. Hey, Republicans, if you hate government, well, then why don't we have a real shutdown? Like a real shutdown. Now, I guarantee if that happens, a lot of those Republicans that hate the government will beg Trump to reopen the government, to basically cave to, you know, Chuck and Nancy. Now, of course, I'm not in favor of that position because I think that a lot of innocent people would end up getting hurt, even more so than the over 700,000 people that are on furlough right now. But just once, I'd love to see these anti-government Republicans realize how much they actually depend on the government and how much good the government actually does. No, is it perfect? Of course not, right? And here's the thing. Do I actually want big government? No, I want smart government. I want functional government. I want government that helps people and keeps corporations and special interests in line instead of kowtows to them like we currently have in this system, right? Now, I also don't want from our government is one that uses our tax money to build a useless wall that people will just fly over and overstay their visas. That's literally how a majority of people come here and become undocumented. It's not that they're crossing the border from Mexico. So this whole thing is, again, idiotic. The whole reason for the shutdown makes no sense. And the president, again, shows he's a pathological liar. And he's also shown that he is an incredibly weak leader. He's bowing to Ann Coulter and Rush Limbaugh, two people who are deeply irrelevant. He's also showing that he's going to bend down to those people, but not actually represent you. And so that's just a good illustration of who Donald Trump actually is. Now you know. Okay. So there's your shutdown update. And now let's get into the private prison story. All right. So when President Trump was elected to office on the promise of cracking down on illegal immigration, you had a curious thing happen. You had stocks for private prisons that ended up rising dramatically. Now, look, during the Obama administration at the tail end, President Obama put in some reforms that deeply hurt the private prison industry, especially corporations like Geo Group and CoreCivic. Now, it's kind of a curious thing that happened, right? I mean, Trump gets elected on, yes, law and order, platform of law and order, but also on immigration. Well, on immigration, he says, well, we're going to turn people away. We're going to start deporting people, right? That was his main promise. So then why would stocks for private prison corporations go up so much? I mean, again, we're not supposed to be imprisoning immigrants. We're supposed to be sending them back to Mexico, right? Well, in reality, we're doing the opposite. We are keeping more undocumented immigrants here, and we're putting them in these for-profit prisons. In fact, taxpayers are now paying for immigrant detentions that drag on for years with people in terrible conditions, while, of course, donors to the Trump organization, or I'm sorry, Trump administration, basically profit. These are people in the for-profit prison industry. Now, I have a report here from the Daily Beast that did an investigation that found that in 2018 alone, for-profit immigration detention had become a nearly $1 billion industry under the administration. Now, that same report also found a host of issues inside these detention centers that included suicide, minimal oversight, and what a lot of immigration advocates say resembles slave labor, all underwritten by the U.S. taxpayer. So that's fascinating. Now, wait a minute here. I thought you guys wanted to deport immigrants because they cost us money. I mean, yes, there's no data that actually backs that up. In fact, immigrants do help the economy. But if you're a MAGA guy, you believe that immigrants are costing us all this money. Well, actually, thanks to this, they are. They are actually costing you more money. And it's because we're detaining them due to the administration's hardline policies on immigration. See, you know what we did before? This was a policy under the Obama administration that the Trump administration ended. They did something called catch and release. So you would take someone and then you would, arrest them at the border and then you would release them. Now we go to indefinite detention. And so now taxpayer money, lots of taxpayer money, is going into these private prison corporations thanks to a reversal of that policy. But it gets worse. Let me give you some more of the details. Now, a recent study by the Pew Hispanic Center, using Census Bureau data, estimates that the U.S. currently has an illegal immigrant population of about 11.5 to 12 million people. Now, about 1/3 of those arriving within the past 10 years, and more than half are from Mexico. So, now those are the numbers, of course, that a lot of people on the right tend to freak out about. Oh my God, there's 11 to 12 million illegals in this country. I wonder how many of them are voting. Well, the answer would be none, because they actually can't vote. But that's not even the point here. So the Trump administration said, we want to get rid of those 11 million people. Well, good luck. In reality, what the administration would want to do is to take a big portion of these people and put them into these detention centers, this immigrant detention centers, right? So now, what's interesting about that as well, right, is that the same thing, the fact that we have so many undocumented immigrants in the United States leads to calls for more border security. Ironically, more border security and a wall would likely keep more of those people in and actually deters people from returning to their country of origins, right? So that's an interesting thing about that. But again, there's a lot of these people who are now in these detention centers that are costing us a lot of money. That wouldn't if we had simply kept catch and release. Now, the Daily Beast reported last month that as of October 20th, ICE was now detaining an average of 44,631 people every day. That is an all-time high, and it is thanks to the immigration crackdown that we are having under the Trump administration. Now, ICE told the Daily Beast that its latest detention numbers are even higher, 44,892 people as of December 8th, and its budget request for the current fiscal year anticipates detaining 52,000 people every day. Now, the problem here, again, is we are keeping them in these centers. And of course, since there aren't enough centers that ICE operates, we have contracted them out to private prison corporations. Now, what's the number one thing that a private prison corporation wants to do? Well, they want to make sure that they have business. They want to make sure that they continue to fill those beds. And so they're going to lobby the administration to continue its tough stances against immigrants to make sure that they keep themselves profiting or profitable, right? Now, how profitable? Well, it's being reported that Geo Group expects its earnings to grow to $2.3 billion this year. And like other private prison corporations, it also made large donations to President Trump's campaign and inaugural and saw its stock rise when Trump became president. It's not an accident, right? That's not the stock just rose today for no reason. No, these things have, these events, they do have some impact on whether the market rises or falls. And in this case, Corrections Corporation of America and Geo Group, they saw that there was a president that was going to be very friendly to them and reverse some of the Obama policies. And so investors, of course, were thinking, payday, here we go. Now, it's been estimated, by the way, that for the 19 privately owned and operated detention centers for which the Daily Beast could find recent pricing data, ICE had paid an estimated $807 million in fiscal year of 2018. So again, they're giving a lot of money, almost $1 billion for the year of 2018 to this private corporation that is taxpayer money. Now, those prisons right now hold 18,000 people, meaning that, of course, for-profit prisons currently lock up about 41% of the 44,000 people detained by ICE. Now, that's not a comprehensive total, and there are figures that are probably even higher. Now, in fact, the National Immigrant Justice Center estimated that for November 2017, roughly 71% of immigrant detainees, then a smaller total figure, were held in 33 privately operated jails. Now, the Daily Beast does also note that providing a comprehensive tally of ICE detention centers is actually fairly difficult. However, they do their best to try to figure out just how many there actually are. Now, the Department of Homeland Security claims that ICE operates about nearly 250 official centers, right? Now, a study earlier this month for the American Immigration Council found 638 sites, more than twice the DHS figure. ICE told the Daily Beast that it uses only 205 facilities, citing information on its website that immigration researchers consider incomplete and misleading. Now, I'd like to see how they came to that conclusion. Look, it would be interesting to see that, again, how they found out there were more. But again, there is no question that there are a lot of people in these centers, and there are a lot of these centers that have opened up thanks to the hardline immigration. Now, it's not like this problem didn't exist prior to the Trump administration, but the policies that we've seen now are even harder than some of the previous administrations. And look, I called, President Obama deporter-in-chief because that's what he did. He deported more people than the Bush administration. But with Trump, it's not so much deportations, it's more of incarcerations, which is a different, albeit still terrible issue. And that's what we're trying to discuss here. Now, I've got some more information here. Now, the Daily Beast also notes that separating out the privately run facilities is also very difficult from some of those official numbers, since some of ICE's state and local partnership prisons are run by for-profit companies, and complete lists are difficult to find. In response to the Beast's inquiries, ICE said it could not provide a full breakdown of contractor-operated immigration prisons. So we don't know. We don't know how many there are, but we know there are quite a bit. And we don't know how many of those are privately owned and operated. So, but what we do know is that their business model does mean arresting and detaining more immigrants. And so that is deeply problematic. So that, of course, thanks to our system, where we have money in politics and we have a lot of lobbying, well, these lobbyists from this industry will make sure that this administration continues to stay hardline on those anti-immigrant policies. Now, one contributor to this report said of this difficulty to find exact numbers, which means they're not the most transparent administration in history, who knew, said the culture of secrecy around this, bolstered by revolving door politics and political contributions, have paved the way for a rapid and reckless expansion of the detention system. And that expansion, of course, means more money into this system solely for detaining immigrants. Now, how much money is that? Well, the 10 Geo Group facilities the Daily Beast was able to find pricing data for charged an average of about $101 per prisoner per day, compared to ICE's overall projected $121.90 average daily rate for adult beds in fiscal year 2018. And those 10 facilities currently hold about 11,000 immigrants. Now, there is a caveat to that. The Government Accountability Office did warn back in April that ICE does lowball its detention costs through what they called dubious accounting. So again, there's not a lot of transparency here, and it's very difficult to pin down the exact costs and the exact amount of centers and who owns and operates those centers. So we're really operating here with a rough understanding of how bad this problem actually is. So again, we still have some numbers and some idea, though, and we'll get to that. Now, in November, Geo Group reported that it expects to earn $2.3 billion this year, including immigration detention revenues, an increase of nearly 1.8% from the $2.26 billion reported in 2017, and up 5.5% from the $2.18 billion it earned in 2016. So I give you those figures to show you how much this is growing under the current administration. And I would not be surprised to see revenue grow even more in 2019. Now, interestingly enough, what also grew in the last few years, and perhaps in the last decade, was political contributions. Now, the most recent contribution, of course, was Geo Group giving nearly $300,000 to Trump's campaign. And while this has, of course, been a problem under Trump, this has also been a problem under Obama as well and previous presidents. Now, to show you how much they've ramped up their lobbying, in 2004, GEO Group spent only about $120,000 on federal lobbying, but by 2016, it was spending $1.2 million. Fellow private prisons giant CoreCivic also spent nearly $10 million between 2008 and 2014 to lobby the House Appropriations Subcommittee that controls immigration detention funding. So again, this isn't necessarily a Trump problem, but it is something that has gotten worse under Trump, and it's something that we should have stopped a very long time ago. Now, so let's get here into one of the things about this that's especially egregious. And it's not just that they can make money for these private prison corporations by simply shoving people off, these immigrants, by the way, people who cross the border illegally, into these prisons, right? They also make these people work for less than $1 a day. In fact, ICE's internal detention standards set pay for what they call voluntary immigrant labor at only at least $1 per day. Now, wait a minute here. So they're doing labor, you know, things like working in the kitchen or sweeping halls. You know, that stuff also could have been done by regular people, right? But no, let's make the inmates do it, and we'll pay them $1 a day. Now, they cost over $100 a day in taxpayer money to house. So who's making out really well in this situation? Oh, right. The company is. Now, I notice how I said voluntary, by the way. Now, it turns out, according to lawsuits over the past few years, that allege that labor within the private prisons is actually less than voluntary than the corporations insist. Shocker. Oh, corporation actually lying? Wow, amazing. Who would have thought? Now, there was a class action lawsuit against GEO Group, initially by 9 detainees in Colorado, that claimed that tens of thousands of immigrants have been forced to work for their $1 daily wage. Now, a different lawsuit against a GEO Group facility in California claimed systemic and unlawful wage theft, unjust enrichment, and forced labor, including a scheme in which the corporation requires work to buy the basic necessities, including food, water, hygiene products, that GEO Group refuses to provide for them. So that is pretty close to slave labor. That's as close as that you can get. Now, Washington State sued GEO Group in 2017 for paying its detainees $1 a day, or sometimes in what the complaint called snack food, rather than the $11 an hour state minimum wage. So wage theft, paying people very, very subpar wages, making people work for basically the basics of survival. I mean, that's what's going on in these for-profit prisons. And of course, why they don't get caught very often is because they have such minimal oversight. But it's not just the slave labor conditions in these prisons. There are other problems as well. For example, poor living conditions, some of which is so bad that it caused people to either die or attempt suicide. Now, according to the report, 15 out of the 179 detainees who died in ICE custody between October 2003 and February of 2018 were held at a single private immigration detention center run by CoreCivic in Arizona. Now, at another privately run immigration detention jail, GEO Group's Adelanto ICE Processing Center in California, there have been at least 7 suicide attempts between December 2016 and October 2017, and at least one of them was successful. A September DHS Inspector General's report showed photographs of bed sheets hanging as improvised nooses inside Adelanto cells. A detainee told inspectors, Quote, I've seen a few attempted suicides using braided sheets by the vents, and then the guards laugh at them and call them suicide failures once they're back from medical. So, situation is so bad. Imagine a situation so bad that it makes you want to kill yourself. And then when you fail, they laugh at you for not being successful. Now, not only that, but another detainee death classified as a suicide occurred at CoreCivic's Stewart Detention Facility in July of 2018, also using a bedsheet noose. Now, again, what makes it so bad, you might ask? Well, if you're not already convinced, there's more information. It's been reported that medical care is nearly non-existent. People there are given the wrong prescriptions for depression. They say, oh, no, you can go ahead and you can get medication if you're feeling depressed. That's fine. Again, remember, these people aren't necessarily criminals, right? Their biggest crime was crossing the border illegally. They haven't been convicted of a violent crime. Like a majority of them are actually there for administrative purposes. And yet, they're being treated as if they are hardened criminals that have killed people. So now when they're depressed, as I mentioned before, they can go up and get medication, right? Well, they're often given the wrong medication and sometimes medication that doesn't even work. So congratulations. Not only that, but they have to wait a very long time to see their lawyers because a lot of them are actually trying to get asylum. Often months between visits from their lawyers. They're not allowed to go outside. They get recreation time once a week in a separate room from their cells. So one inmate said that, yeah, we are given a soccer ball and then shepherded into another room. I haven't seen the sun since I've been here. I haven't been allowed to be outside at all. So, and they're only allowed to leave their cells, by the way, to either see their lawyers, their visitors, or end up going to work. Now, one inmate, an LGBT woman who ran from MS-13. Now, MS-13, these are the guys that the right-wing fearmongers about, especially President Trump. She was running from them because they would kill her for being a lesbian, right? Now, she is currently in one of these detention centers in Texas. And she said through a translator, quote, "This is a really terrible place. It's inhumane. It's like a torture chamber." So that's what it's like in this place. Now that, I mean, listening to that and going through all this information, it kind of makes you sick. I mean, again, to think that there are people being locked up and exploited and being kept in these horrible conditions for the crime of trying to get a better life. And in reality, they're just there to make money for these gigantic corporations. Now, I know that, of course, some right-wingers will say, oh, but you shouldn't have come in legally. You should have come in legally, shouldn't have come in illegally. Well, look, here's the thing. A lot of these people did come in legally. They're asylum seekers. Seeking asylum is perfectly 100% legal. But this administration doesn't actually care. They would rather treat people, immigrants, as if they are criminals. Throw them in these prisons and then get checks from these for-profit prison corporations, these campaign donations. Now, does that sound like the land of the free? Come on. Now, so what do we do about it? Oh, well, for one, we've got to get Trump out of office. I mean, that's number one, right? Number two, if you really want to fix the actual problem behind this, get money out of politics. And then we can actually look into dismantling this prison industrial complex that right now is making money off these people. But if Trump gets his wall, here's the thing. Think about who's going to be filling those beds. Might be black people, right? There are no immigrants. Then who are they going to go after? Could be black people. Could be poor people. I don't know. Latinos. I don't know. All I know is that we've got to stop this thing before it's too late. And so we definitely need prison reform. We need campaign finance reform. We need to get these corporations out of the business of, profiting from locking people up, especially immigrants. And like I said, we've got to make this the shining city on the hill again. We've got to make this the land of the free again. And we are not there. Okay. You know what I forgot to do in that whole thing? I forgot to change my sidebar. Jesus. Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We got GM layoffs. And stay for that. So we'll be right back. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf with you. If you haven't already, please give us a like and a share. I know I spent a lot of time on that immigration story, but I thought that was important to share what was happening, just in case you didn't know how these actually operated. So now we've got, again, a lot more stories here. We're going to go into GM and some of the reactions from some of the recent layoffs. I think we'll actually start with that. So let's dive in. Okay. So back in November, GM announced that it would cut roughly about 14,000 jobs and idle 5 factories in North America. Now, one of those factories included the Lordstown plant in Ohio. Now, that plant employs about 1,600 workers, and now some of those workers are speaking out, yes, both against Trump, but also mostly against the CEO and the company, Mary Barra. Now, I want to give you some quotes here from some of these workers. Now, Danny Adams has worked at the plant since 1996, and he said that the announcement was a complete surprise. He said, it was really a kick in the stomach. It's not woe is me, it's woe is us. And by us, of course, he means the entire town of Lordstown, which, of course, that plant operated as a central hub. Now, Stephanie Alien, I probably said that wrong, Alien, said, this is devastating, this is our livelihood, right? Now, she, of course, was working for GM in 2000. She began working for GM in 2000 and had been transferred to Lordstown back in 2010. Now, she actually worked at a lot of different plants. She said, this isn't my first rodeo. This is my 3rd GM plant. I'd like to be able to plant my roots somewhere. Now, she had been actually transferred to Lordstown when her GM plant in Louisiana had closed. And now before Shreveport, she also worked at a GM-owned Delphi auto parts plant in New York, which laid her off in 2006. So she's been around, and it seems like a lot of these workers end up getting shipped off to different places because of closures, etc. And so the reason that I think this is important, that this is actually important to me, is because I used to work in this industry, so I kind of understand how it feels. Now, not necessarily being shipped off to different plants, but working in that same industry, doing those same kinds of things. Now, when she got transferred to Lordstown, she said she actually had a little bit of hope. She said, there was this feeling that this plant has been around forever and this plant wasn't going anywhere. You felt a security coming here. People bought houses. So, again, that is something that is one of those things where it's like, you think it's going to be there forever, but you know it's not. And, you know, I know better now, but there was a time that I used to think a similar way. Oh, no, these places aren't going anywhere. They're not going to go in it. They've been here forever. What are you talking about? It's a fixture of the city. They're never going to shut this down. Well, it turns out, no. If the money is right, of course they're going to shut it down. And so when you really think about it, there actually is no security. There is no job security, right? Now, the thing about this that is so devastating for these people is that, again, this is the only place really keeping that town afloat. It's not just a plant, remember. And there's a whole web of industries that it supports. For example, you have the part suppliers. You had some of the local stores that rely on customers who worked at the plant. All of that is interconnected. So then when the plant goes, when it shuts down or when it idles, if they don't actually have another vehicle, of course, to build, then you're going to see a lot of these support industries also crumble. And that is hugely problematic, right? Now, to show you how much that added to this local economy, the plant generated about $250 million in wages just last year. That goes right back into the local economy. And without that gone, Lordstown's in big, big trouble. Now, they could allocate another car there so they don't have to idle it, But as I reported before, they're actually sending one of the vehicle lines to Mexico. And now I've learned that they're sending a second vehicle line to Mexico. I said before incorrectly that they were shutting down production of the Cruze. They were ending the Cruze. No, they're actually sending the Chevrolet Cruze down to Mexico for it to be assembled there. So that was being done at Lordstown, not anymore. Now, on that, upon learning that, of course, Alan said, we should be building the next generation of car here in America. We should be building the crossovers here, not in Mexico. So, look, the problem is that Mexico has incredibly low wages, and here's this company that says, I'm going to save money by cutting labor costs. So that's what they're going to do. Now, the workers are also angry that GM, helped by the $1 trillion tax cut enacted by the Republicans and President Trump, has actually used a lot of that money not to create more cars, not to, do more R&D and expand their business, but just to buy back their own stock. And that's what they did. And see, they spent $14 billion on stock buybacks since 2015. That is not long after the American taxpayer bailed them out. So if you're saying, hey man, look, why are you closing down plants when you just got a gigantic tax cut and we bailed you out? What are you doing? What's going on here? And so I can understand why they're so pissed. And you also had the CEO, Mary Barra, making $22 million in compensation last year. Now, the way that a lot of CEOs get compensated is not from cash packages. Actually, a lot of it is tied up in their stock. Well, they're doing gigantic stock buybacks. Well, stock buybacks, if most of your compensation comes through stock and you just do massive buybacks from that tax cut, well, then you're going to end up getting a huge amount of benefit in that. So expect that number to get even bigger. And again, that has people very, very angry. For example, you had Cheryl Janesco, who was laid off in early 2017 when the Lordstown plant cut its third shift. Now, she said, quote, they're receiving our taxpayer dollars and investing in these other countries? I don't know how Barra can lay in her bed and sleep at night. Well, maybe she sleeps on a pile of money. I don't know, like Scrooge McDuck. I don't know. But look, to be honest, it's not just her. It's the corporate structure. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But Dave Green, president of the UAW Local 111, 1,112. I don't know why that was so difficult for me to say. It's been one of those days. He said, GM is betraying the American worker, the American taxpayer. He also says, Chevrolet is apple pie. It's an American icon. What disturbs me is GM is going to exit this entry-level segment. If there's no entry-level cars, what are they going to put people in? Are we going to see Toyota, Honda, and Kia gain market share and GM throwing in the towel? Maybe. I mean, look, here's what they're doing. The corporate structure says we must maximize profit. Look, to be honest, a lot of these sedans and cars, thanks to Trump relaxing fuel standards, these cars are not as popular as they were. So people are buying more SUVs, people are buying more trucks, right? Okay, look, I understand that there's a market correction, right? That's going to happen when you do that. Still, what they can do is that they can actually invest in making better trucks, more fuel efficient trucks, things that people actually want to buy. And I don't think that's what they were doing. What they were doing is basically padding their own pockets. And so that's a big, big problem. Now, going back here to one of the other workers, they said that their GM is making a strategic mistake by ending U.S. production of the Cruze and several other sedans. Now, it's been reported that they're ending the Chevrolet Impala, the Chevy Volt, and the Buick LaCrosse. Again, because of less sales, right? Now, he said, GM had the perfect opportunity to say, we're the only American car manufacturing company that is building cars in the USA. They could have been like Harley Davidson. They missed it right there because they want their pockets full of money. Well, I got bad news. Harley Davidson also left. I don't know if you got that news. And look, they left partly due to President Trump's tariffs and the price of steel. Hey, remember how he said trade wars are great and easy to win? Yeah, about that. Looks like nobody wins in a trade war. But it's not just Trump, of course. It's the corporate structure. It's corporate greed, right? These companies, all they do is they exist to make money. Now, if you end up getting in the way of that, well, then you're gone. They will crush you. And it's nothing personal. Going back to what was said, right? The fact that Chevrolet is apple pie, it's an American icon. There is no such thing as an American corporation. It's a multinational corporation, and they have no loyalty to America. They have no loyalty to Lordstown. They have no loyalty to their workers. They have no loyalty to you and me. All they have is a loyalty to maximize profit. That's what that is. That's all they do. Okay? This is the system. And again, it's nothing personal. It's how they were designed. Now, if Mary Barra didn't do everything that she could to maximize profit, she would end up getting replaced by the board. It's not the company, it's not the president, it's the system. The entire system is broken. You have a system right now that incentivizes short-term profits that outweigh everything else. Now, there will be no fixing of the system. Because right now, they have the system fixed the way that they want it. Trump's not going to do anything about it. The next president might not do anything about it, depending on who it is. And if it's not a progressive, then definitely they're not going to fix that. Because that very system allows them to be wealthy. And of course, it allows so many others to be wealthy too. Why change what makes you rich? And here's the thing. I feel for these people. I really do. I've been in their shoes. I've done that kind of work. And this is why we need progressive priorities. This is why we need to change that system into a system that, instead of working for the CEOs and the top 1%, have a system that actually works for everybody. Okay. I'm going to try to power through this next story. All right. First, do this. A hotel has called the police on a black man staying in Portland last week. Now, according to the Oregonian, the man Jermaine Massey, who was from Washington State, was visiting Portland for the first time to attend a concert when he received a phone call from his mother. Now, okay, look, you go to return that call, which he did. He was in the lobby of the DoubleTree Hotel. Now, he had already registered, he already had a room, he already had everything set up, but he was in the lobby and decided to return that phone call. Now, while he was on that call, a hotel security guard walked up to him and asked him to leave. Well, now that's curious. Why would he ask him to leave? Now, as you're going to see, the lobby was fairly empty when he was making that call, so he wasn't being disruptive. But nonetheless, when he refused to leave, the security guard decided to call the police. Now, Massey documented this encounter on Instagram, and I want to show you a video here on that. Let's take a look.
He's calling the cops on me because I'm taking a phone call at the Doubletree Hotel. Say hi, Earl. Say hello. You came over here because I was taking a phone call in the area where no one was. I had a family emergency, and I was taking a phone call, and this guy's harassing me. And he wants to call the cops on me because I'm taking a phone call in the lobby of my hotel. You really want this PR issue, Earl? Do you?
Orland Police will be here in a minute.
Thank you. Call them. I'm waiting.
Okay.
They're coming. Why? Why are they coming?
Escort you off the property?
Because what? And I'm staying here?
Not anymore.
Oh, okay. I'm staying here. I have a hotel. I didn't do anything to you. I'm sitting over here taking a phone call.
Nonetheless, you take a phone call in the lobby while black, well, then a security guard named Earl is going to kick you out. That's amazing, man. What the hell, Earl? As you can see, there's almost nobody in that lobby except for him. He's not disturbing anybody, but again, we know what this is about. Earl, in this case, he's a black man. He's talking on the phone in the lobby and thinks, oh, this guy's going to make trouble. He's making trouble. I got to get rid of him. Now, does this happen to white people? No, of course not. This never happened to me. I could sit in that lobby all day and maybe somebody like, hey, how you doing? Or, oh, do you have a room here? And all I could say is, yes, I do have a room here. And I would encourage you to leave me the fuck alone. I don't know. Maybe I'd get in trouble if I did that. But certainly nothing that this guy did, talking on the phone, it should have gotten him in this kind of trouble. But anyway, now I have another video here of Massey talking to both Earl and I guess maybe it's a manager or somebody who was working there. So I want to show you guys that.
And I needed some privacy. I had a family emergency going on, and this gentleman decided to come over here and harass me and ask me where I was staying.
Okay. He has a right to do that. You know that, right?
Did he ask anyone else in here?
Yes.
For what reason?
Same reason I told you.
Did you ask them to just walk by?
They're not loitering.
How am I loitering in an area that's public?
You're sitting here.
So this area is off limits after a certain time?
Only if you're a guest.
I am a
You
guest.
didn't tell me that.
I said that I'm a guest.
No.
I told you
what room
that.
you were in, you refused.
I'm in 5 something.
Now you want to give me.
I don't know the number. I just checked in today. Here's my ticket, my room. I just checked in for my American Express.
Okay.
And these gentlemen are harassing me.
No one's harassing you, man.
You are.
I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. No one's
There's
harassing
nothing to get to the bottom of, sir. Do you want to check and see if I'm a guest?
you. That's why I asked you, man. I'm trying to help you out here, bro.
No, I'd like to see the cops. Let the cops come.
How can you loiter in a place that's public? That's a good question. Oh, it turns out you can't, especially if you're a guest and you tell them, I'm a guest. Again, if somebody asked me, all I could do is just say, well, I'm a guest. You think they would want to check my stuff? Most likely not. But then again, look at me, right? And that's basically the difference. So they ended up having to interrogate him to make sure he was a guest. And again, when he said, I'm a guest, here, what's my room? I don't know, 5 something. I just checked in today. Here, I've got my ticket. Still not good enough. Not good enough. We're still going to make you leave. Again, that right there is an example of what happens to black people everywhere. And we don't know it. They're treated as if their word just isn't good enough. That no, well, we need proof. We need proof. We need to know. Oh, your proof's not good enough. You got to go. You got to go. White privilege. That is white privilege. Now, some people think, oh, no. When white privilege means that you get money showered on you and that you get the best stuff. And when poor people hear white privilege, like, privilege? No, I'm not privileged. What are you talking about? No, the thing is, white privilege is not being treated like Mr. Massey was treated in that video. That's white privilege. Not being subjected to that kind of questioning. Not having the cops called on you for not calling, for calling your mother in a hotel lobby. That's white privilege. Getting the benefit of the doubt. And that is not what Mr. Massey and a lot of minorities get in this country. And we've got to understand that, right? That's why I present these stories. That's why I'm showing you, like, there is a section of this country that is not treated the same as you and I. And so we're treated differently. And that is in itself a privilege, right? Now you said, okay, bring on the police, right? I'll talk to the police. So maybe you thought, no, the cops will set this straight because this is ridiculous, right? And this is a waste of their time. No, turns out that did not happen. When the police got there, they didn't want to hear Massey's side of the story, according to his post on Instagram. And instead, they basically threatened him and told him he's got to leave or else you're going to get arrested. So Massey wrote, they asked me if I had any personal items in my room, which of course I did, and asked me to go retrieve them. They told me that since the hotel requested me to leave, that if I didn't, I would be considered a trespasser and would be thrown in jail. I complied and cooperated and was not issued a refund for my room. I packed my stuff and I went to another hotel. They even took his money. I mean, how... The indignity of being kicked out of a hotel for basically talking to your mother on the phone in the lobby and then losing your money. Losing your money. Man. No, they say, look, got to get rid of him. Got to get rid of him. You can't stay here. I mean, his money. Well, yeah, your money can stay here with us. The money's good enough. But you got to go. Ridiculous, man. Now, Doubletree, management of the Doubletree Hotel did tell the Oregonian that the incident involving Massey was likely a misunderstanding and that the hotel staff does not racially discriminate against people. Well, look, I don't know about you, but Earl looked like he was a bit discriminatory. I'm just saying. Now, they also continued, they said, this unfortunate incident is likely the result of a misunderstanding between our hotel and guest. We are sorry that this matter ended the way that it did. What with you taking his money? We are a place of public accommodation and do not discriminate against individuals or groups. That is your standard corporate response. But here's the thing. You guys saw the video. You can see the entire thing. All the interactions on his Instagram. And from what I've seen, it's pretty clear that Earl, for whatever BS reason, had a problem with Mr. Massey. And I don't see why there was a problem. Now, Massey did say in a final post that he knows what it was. He said, it is never okay to discriminate against guests for the color of their skin and to prejudge them based on your own bias against that race. And that bias, I think, was fairly clear. And to be honest, look, a lot of us have a bias. A lot of us have something called an innate bias, right? Where we don't necessarily know that we have it, but it leads you to do certain things. It leads you to question people, or, you know, it leads some women to pull their purses a little closer when they get into an elevator with a black person. Something like that. And that bias, we've got to address that as individuals. And we've got to make sure that, hey, we need to think through it logically and see why we're doing it. And see the fact that we're doing it is wrong. And that there is no basis in this, right? Now, he also said, by the way, and I love this statement from him, Earl is a disgrace. Calls himself a man, but calls the Portland Police Department on a man who was minding his own business in the lobby of his hotel. I had my hotel key in my hand the entire conversation. He knew I was a guest. He wanted to prove a point and did it in the worst way. His point was, I'm the authority here. And that's basically what it is. Now, he also said it's not really shocked that this happened, but extremely disappointed. Now, look, just the fact that he's not shocked just underscores how often stuff like this happens. Now, we've seen Barbecue Becky, Pool Patrol Paula. We've seen people get the cops called on them for no reason, almost no reason. And usually, almost 100% of the time, It's because some white person gets very uncomfortable around a black person doing something normal. And so they feel the need to remove him. And so that's what happens. Now, in this last video, by the way, Massey ends with this. He says, quote, "I will be seeking justice. Believe that." Well, I do. I do believe it. And I hope he gets his refund. And I hope he gets whatever justice that he's seeking. Because I don't want to have a country where we do stuff like this. I don't want to have a place where we treat people differently based on the color of their skin. That is not the kind of country that I want to live in. And so I want to make this much, much better so that this doesn't happen to anyone ever again. All right. That's it. That's all I've got time for you. I know I'm going way over. A lot of you have probably left the TYT by now. I'm sure they'll cover this story as well. So thank you for those who stayed. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Please like and share if you haven't already. Also, please consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That helps out the show. Also, super chats, didn't get any today, but I appreciate it when you guys support the show that way. All right. So I'm going to be heading out. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Going to have a great Friday show. Hopefully going to get to this ridiculous budget story. I love it. I just can't get to it right now. But we'll do that hopefully tomorrow. All right, guys. We'll see you later. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you tomorrow.